Perfect.
Hello, listeners. We are back for another episode. This time, I've changed it up. We have a special guest who is a poet artist, but he practices the art of taxes here in Florida. Please welcome Carl Cyrius. He is the CEO of the Oasis firm, and he's a caring husband and father. He has accumulated over a decade in experience in taxes and hold an MBA in accounting. What's more, he has served the country. Thank you for your service and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Amanda. My pleasure for my service. It's what makes me tick. I'm a problem solver by nature, and I love this introduction. I couldn't do anything better about it. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, how's this weather? You enjoying the weather?
Yes, I'm enjoying the weather, but at the same time, a little bit concerned because, this weekend, Memorial Day sort of marked the beginning of summer and it's already at 95 degrees, which means it is just hitting up, Matter of fact, it's kind of like preheating like an oven. So I'm kind of concerned what the actual summer will be like.
Yes. Let's jump into it. So we're going to jump into the art of taxes. We're going to be talking a little bit about artists who have their own LLC and artists who don't have their own LLC. To start, can you explain a little bit like the difference or the importance between having an accountant, CPA, bookkeeper, and a tax preparer?
Absolutely. So the first one you mentioned is an accountant, right? Mm-hmm. So I will relate an accountant to maybe, let's say, a bookie, and I know bookie is usually thought of as gambling, but you think of bookie, somebody keeping the books, somebody, keeping track of the bets, whatever the case is. And this is applicable to any other type of business when it comes to keeping the book or keeping tracks of whatever else they got going on, whether it be for an artist or for something a little bit more serious like a tax firm or even something as random as a church. But yeah, so that's what an accounting is. Now jumping into a CPA. A CPA is basically the gold standards in accounting, So think of it as, let's say, the bookkeeper is kind of like a paralegal or no. The accountant is maybe like a journeyman. And then by the time you get to be a CPA, now you are a doctor. You've complete your journeyman. Now jumping into the bookkeeper is something like a paralegal. So a lot of times you're working with a law firm and you never get to really interact with the attorney. You more so interact with the paralegal. And a lot of paralegal will tell you most of the time they're doing most of the work and the lawyer actually just coming at the end to button up, draft the legal document that only he can draft. So kind of using the same analogy in the medical field, think of a CPA as a doctor, but it is a general doctor. If you have, some random issue and you just want to hey, I just want to check out whatever general checkup, it's always good to go to a general doctor. It is still a doctor, very highly regarded. But if you have some heart palpitation, you're going to be very specific about wanting to see a cardiovascular doctor. And towards the end, you mentioned a tax preparer. A tax preparer, as a tax preparer myself, in a sense, well, I like to call myself a tax practitioner. It's a huge difference. But reason I like to make this distinction is because a tax preparer has the lowest barrier to entry in any professional industry. Literally, if you wanted to be a tax preparer yourself and have a professional number to dictate as such, while we're on this podcast, within 15 minutes, I will show you how to do it. And the only thing probably that will stop you is $40. They do not even ask you on the IRS website, what is 2 plus 2? So you got to be really wary when you're dealing with tax preparers to know, are you dealing with somebody that is credentials or are you dealing with somebody that is not credentials? And I am a credential licensed IRS enrolled agent with full representation rights, just like CPAs in lawyers. So there's a huge difference between a tax preparer and a tax practitioner. I'm a tax practitioner.
Okay, perfect. How can artists what can artists do to avoid having tax anxiety? Because you know me, you were doing my taxes and I was like, I want to avoid having to do taxes, anything with numbers and dealing with the IRS. I just didn't want to be in trouble.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to clarity in a sense. Whenever somebody is talking about having anxieties because they don't have clarity about what's ahead of them, they're sort of anticipating something, So I want you as an artist to think about walking into a museum blindfolded. You don't know what you're going to see. It could be a masterpiece, but at the same time, it could be a mess. And the way you cure that is through consistency. You got to keep track of your income, keep your receipt, and partner with a tax pro before tax season. A lot of people wait until April to say, hey, can you get me an extension or can you get me to beat the deadline? That's not a good way to think about it, because sometimes there are decisions that you could have made in January that is no longer available to you by the time you come to them in April. So, and the best way I could keep it to an artist is, hey, think of it as a monthly vibe and not a yearly panic.
Okay, I like that. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to ask you, what are some best practices when it comes to, keeping track of your taxes as an artist? What should we be mindful of before we even get to tax season?
Artists, one thing that I don't like, they say about artists, it's okay to be a broke artist, or artist that's barely making it. And it's very natural because it starts with passion for a lot of us. Like you mentioned in the beginning, I'm a poet. I've been writing poetry since 9-10 years old, and you've probably been drawing even at an earlier age. So it's a passion, but at the end of the day, that passion, we turn it into a business and we got to treat it like such. So separate your money, have a separate bank account for your business and keep a separate bank account, for your personal money. I say that is one of the main things, because when you start to engage certain professional as the business is growing and you're unable to manage that on your own, it'll make it that much easier for you to present your paperwork in your file to that professional, and it will also keep your bill very low. So if you get ahead of the process, you also get to control your narrative.
Okay, that's perfect. So I know artists can be something broad in between different industries, like graphic design, illustration, maybe a muralist that I've seen here in Miami. What can a fine artist without an LLC can do to be taxes compliant?
All right. So I just want to say right off the bat, you do not need an LLC to be legit. The downside to that, there are certain protection liability that you will not have. Aside from that, the IRS is going to treat you like a sole proprietor. Like if you don't have a business, they're already choosing one for you. But still, you can file a Schedule C to report all of your income, even the cash payments you're getting, let's say at art fairs, you need to account for those, and save about 20 to 25% for taxes later on. And one thing that come to mind, that's probably still somewhat, maybe not trending, but it's still relevant because it happened this year. Think of Meek Mill tax situation back in February. He was so flabbergasted about it. He went and posted on X about it, formerly known as Twitter. So his situation, basically, the IRS just went into his account and took out $3 million.
Whoa.
And he was like, how can that happen? Because that was for tax year 2015. Back in 2015, I only made $2.7 million.
That's
so insane. How do you get $3 million for taxes at a $2.7 million. It doesn't make no sense.
Right.
So what I think happened to Meek Mill, because it could be a plethora of things, but more than likely, I'll say this is what happened to him because I work with influencers and I see it happening to those influencers. So the IRS have what you call a substitute for return, shortly known as SFR. And what they do is basically they'll send you a letter before and tell you, hey, if you don't file your taxes by this date, I will file it for you. And when the IRS file your taxes for you, they don't file it in your advantage, they file it in their advantage. So that's what happened to Meek Mill. Now you may still be wondering, hey, $3 million for taxes out of $2.7 million of income, that don't make no sense. Yes, in IRS math, it does make sense because you got to account for penalties and interest that's been accruing daily, dating back till 2015. So don't let that happen to you. Account for everything. And like I said, even those art shows payment, you got to think of it like when you're mixing colors, you need the right blend for you to have the full picture or make the picture work.
Right. Okay. So as artists, like, what can we like document as far as like tools on our taxes?
You say tools like
what is considered something that we can put on our taxes?
It is a lot of things. So I'll preface with shameless plug. I had this video I recorded. It is on YouTube. It's called like Maximize the Deduction. What can a business write off? And if there's a way to plug it in, you could plug it in. It's only about 5 minutes long. It is very adaptable and applicable to any business. And what I mean by that is no matter what you're doing, you be able to gather what I call the essential that makes something, write off. So in your line of business as an artist, if it is ordinary and necessary, more than likely it is qualified. So you can think about canvas, you can think about paintbrush, even your travel, do those art shows for your business. Those also can be written off. It's really like the list is very exhaustive, and part of the reason, like I always refer people to the videos, to the video I made, is because depending on your business, it could be so much different. Right now, even though the listeners cannot see us, but I see your background, it looked very cozy, and I'm thinking you might be home. So although you are home, it is your personal abode, but you are in your home studio. So whether you're renting or you have a mortgage, those monthly payment partially are deductible on your taxes. So as well as all of your art supplies, all the little things I see for the cars, marketing costs for your website, if you have one, and definitely even your internet, because we are using it for business right now. And when you go networking, the meals while you're networking are also deductible. So definitely check out the video on YouTube. Hopefully we can plug it in and you'll learn a little bit more.
Yes. Add that in there. I will also add it in the description. That's for sure. Because it's needed, because I feel like in my 5 years of doing business, I never got to just sit down and be like, oh, I need to save these receipts, and tracking them as well, so that when I give it to my tax preparer, they know and can see what you have in total and just add it onto your taxes and maximize your taxes as well. So you mentioned before that having an LLC will grant you some protection as an artist. And is there like also a con for having an LLC? Like if you were to fail to be tax compliant with your LLC, what would the penalties be? Or have you seen in your experience?
No, the only downside that I see as having an LLC sometimes, it basically to me, it dictates to the IRS, hey, I'm serious about my business, If you, let's say you don't have a LLC, just a sole proprietor and you filing Schedule C, personally, I believe this slightly increase the chances of being audited instead if you had an LLC. That being said, business is not easy. You've been in business, like you just mentioned, for 5 years. The first couple of years, you might have been taking a loss, So one rule of the IRS I like to mention is the hobby rule. Apply especially to us artists, whether you are, painting on canvas or you are a DJ. It's those project passion that turn into your profession, where sometimes, we're not aware of certain things. So starting the LLC definitely is a great thing, but the rule of the IRS I'm talking about is in a space of 5 years. So very on point for you. If you are reporting a loss more than 2 years, let's say 3 years out of 5 years, you are risking the IRS basically categorizing your business as a hobby. And in future years, your LLC will no longer be able to take expenses that we were talking about. So be very careful and keeping good records. And that doesn't mean, if you have losses for 3 years, automatically this is it. But if you've been keeping track of those records, like we talk about, you'll be able to prove, hey, I am in a pursuit of profit with my business. It's just things haven't panned out for me, but we're still keeping the faith.
Yes. I guess to follow up with that, what is like your recommendation for like record keeping and documentation of income and expenses that we can utilize in order to show proof that, hey, this is what I have, along with receipts and everything, but how do we show documentation of income and losses along with the expenses for the year?
My best advice when it comes to that is, it sounds like tongue in cheek, but it's very simple, is use what you use. And what I mean by that is both me and my wife, we each have a MacBook. And as you know, MacBook is very geared towards creative. And by profession, I am not a creative, even though I write poetry, And what I'm getting at that is that the use that my wife get out of the features that the MacBook, make available to you, I'm barely scratching the surface. At the same time, if I put my wife on my Microsoft computer, she'll probably be like, man, this thing look ugly. How do I even, operate in there? She's telling me that before, So that's what I mean by use what you use. So whether you're going to use paper napkin, which I don't recommend, and the reason why I say this, it needs to be in writing and there's no direction on what constitutes as writing. So really, sometimes you can have documentation that is on a paper napkin, but it'll probably be really messy for you to just consistently keep track of your record and expenses on paper napkin. Now you can opt in to do a note on your iPhone, but be consistent with that and use what you use. If you want to opt in for like a QuickBooks subscription, use what you use. Trello board, use what you use. Google spreadsheet, use what you use. And that's really the best, way I could put it for somebody. Be consistent about it. Remember, it's got to be a monthly vibe and not a yearly panic. Use what you use.
Perfect. In your experience, what are some common myths that people often overlook?
Common myth that they overlook? Ooh. I'm trying to think of it as an artist. Artists are very like, how do you call this? Very free-spirited. And sometimes you hear people talk about, hey, taxation is theft, and maybe taxes are not even, constitutional. So this is one big myth out there. I will say to not get Do not get caught in, because by the time the IRS is really coming down on you, that's not going to be a legit reasonable cause to raise. Although ignorance of the law is a legitimate reason, but this one itself, the IRS specifically put it in a code. It's not gonna fly. So that's the one that I would put out there, is listen to a professional in a sense, like personally, I mean, just to circle back to my wife, she did my business card, she did my logo. It's really nice. And I mean, she's the creative director for the company, for the brand. And whenever I'm networking and I hand somebody my business card, I purposefully leave out of there what is it that I do, because I know the card itself looks so nice. It's going to be a conversation starter, and I'm expecting somebody to be like, hey, what is it that you do? Why your card is so fancy? And 9 times out of 10, I'm not gonna say 9 times out of 10, but more often than not, what happens is like the person automatically forget to care about me, and they just ask me, hey, who did your card? Lucky for me, it is my wife. Not only now I get myself some business, I get herself some business, but those are the type of things that come to mind with your question.
And I met you and your wife first at a Fort Lauderdale Raw extravaganza, I would say. And it was pretty interesting. And your wife is on it when it comes to graphic design. I love it every time. I still got the card that she had for me. So,
man, I got to give you a new card then.
Yes. So this is kind of like a selfish question for me. So in Florida, I don't know what it is with our sales tax. It gets confusing to me. And I know I have to manage doing sales taxes quarterly. How do we manage sales tax properly?
All right. I mean, first of all, I just want to let you know you're not wrong for feeling how you feel. And reason why I say that, Florida sales tax is like the abstract art of tax in a tax world. Okay, unless you're a professional, you in there, it should look confusing to you. So the key is, if you're selling physical goods like prints or original, you're likely on a hook for collecting and remitting sales tax. You got to register with the Florida Department of Revenue bi-quarterly, like you mentioned, and I'm gonna put it out there right now. Your business is gonna boom, okay? And it's gonna get to a certain volume, and when it gets to that volume, you would not have to file quarterly anymore. You would have to file monthly.
Oh, wow.
So that's something for you to keep in mind. And as always, track everything, whether it is to QuickBooks, to your notes. I mean, by the time you get there, you probably won't want to do your notes, or maybe you want to partner with a tax pro or whatnot. But definitely, yes, you're not alone. And one thing I want to mention when it comes to Florida, and not even just Florida, because my license is federal. So I help people in 49 states. I say 49 states because there's one state I try to stay out of it because they got some wacky rules. It's Oregon. And look, nobody from Oregon or Nike come from me, please, okay? But here's the thing. We tend to think of the IRS with like this big bad wolf or this wild lion. But when it comes to the state, Florida included, they make the IRS look like a domesticated cat. So they'll shut you down very, very fast, more than the IRS, like faster than the IRS would. So just because the IRS is the only one that got Al Capone, trust me, you don't want no problem with Florida, even if they don't have income tax, state income tax, but there are other things that apply to you when it comes to taxes, and that goes for every state out there. They are more aggressive than the IRS is at the moment.
Oof, I don't want to get no trouble. That's for sure. So I'll just shift it a little bit. So how important is credit?
It depends on who you ask, but for me, I would say very important because through starting my entrepreneurial journey, I actually had a 9 to 5. And with that 9 to 5, I was the sole breadwinner and also living paycheck to paycheck. Like it really wasn't enough. And then abruptly, I had to part way with that job. So if it wasn't for credit, I wouldn't be able to fund my business and get it to where it's at. So a lot of people that's going to go on this entrepreneurial journey, you really need to be cognizant about the different means and ways that you could, fund your business. And the basis of all of that, the foundation is having good credit.
Okay. And in your experience, what are some harsh penalties that people face when they were in trouble?
For credit or taxes?
Either one. In your experience, what is like the wildest and craziest harsh penalties?
So I knew this guy, father, and he was a painter, but not like the art type of painter. He was painting houses, and he was doing such a good job. He got a contract from the government to basically go commercial. So he was spending a lot more. He was also, how do I say this? Having to grow a team, employees, stuff like that. But the guy is a painter. Whether, it's a professional thing, but, there's a part of artistry involved in that. And I'm only saying that is because, typically artists are not necessarily business people. And that was the case for him. And as he started paying his employees, growing a team, he did not know about something called payroll taxes, not to be too blunt, no pun intended, but here's a parallel I like to make, just as much as quote unquote weed is like a Schedule 1 offense when it comes to the powers that be, they put it right alongside, I don't know if I could say this, but I think it's a clean word, cocaine. And a lot of people argue that it is unfair. Payroll taxes is literally a Schedule 1 offense for the IRS.
Oh.
So, long story short, this guy got on the radar of the IRS because he was getting government contract, and a lot of those things report to each other, and they came after him for payroll taxes.
Oh.
And where it really, really got messy is because as he was growing the business, he ended up acquiring or getting, a business partner. So that was already bad for him that the IRS was coming after him, but there were taxes owed for both him and his business partner, but the business partner did not have any assets. So not only the IRS hit him for his fair share, the IRS also hit him for his partner fair share and recommended that the partner sue him to get back even. This is just to let you know. Also be careful who you're getting in business with, and that the IRS really do not care. I'll give you a fact. Out of all the taxes that are somewhat owed out here, the IRS have to assess if they can collect. If they were truly assessing if they can collect, they will come up with a number. And this is study being done. This is not me just saying it, pulling it out of thin air right now.
Right.
86% of those taxes are not collectible. So more than likely, if you were to IRS any money, you're part of those people that has taxes that are unpaid, but also if the IRS assess collectability, they should leave you alone. But the IRS will never tell you that. Just like I just told you this story about those two people, the IRS they will basically even interview your neighbor.
No way.
Yes, they will interview your neighbor, anybody they could get information in to find out if you have asset. Whether it is hitting in your backyard, you and those lazy neighbors that might be figuring out, hey, what are you doing in the backyard? Are you basically digging a grave so you could go ahead and plant some type of safe? So the IRS will interview just about anybody. And if there's somebody in association with you, and honestly, you could literally be the secretary. Because I know, as artists, we tend to have a main job and this is our side hustle. If you have signature authority over a certain account and those payroll taxes weren't paid and the IRS figured out, hey, you know what, they could come after you to get paid, they will literally get paid from you and recommend that wherever that be, sue you, or that you sue wherever that be to get back even.
Oh, that's insane. That's insane. I never heard something like that.
Like, it's the craziest thing, I have knowledge of and experience with. They will get paid somehow, some way.
Okay. All right. Another question I have. Do you love your job?
I hope for all along people that's been listening to us can hear the passion in my voice. My voice is not usually like this. About 2 days ago, I hosted a little gathering event to celebrate my birthday at a restaurant. And 3 days before that, I was going to a tax representation conference. So I've lost my voice. I even yesterday canceled on an appointment that I had, and I usually don't cancel. But today, I had to just come out here hoping that my voice is a little bit better. It's not fully back, but I'm saying all this just so you know, like, I'm super, super passionate about this. I literally have a 5-year plan, which I'm ahead of, which means it may not take 5 years. By the time it's all said and done, if you follow me on my journey, you're going to notice I'm not one of the ones. I'm the one.
Ooh, he said he's him.
I'm him. My thing is, after God, I'm him. So, just to go into this, I have this series called Tax Tabernacle. Today, the second episode is going to drop. And what that is basically me going to sacred stories on the Bible and looking at them through the modern lens of the IRS tax code.
Okay. And that's also going to be in the description below too. So I'm definitely linking everything in the description. And hopefully my listeners can also follow up and actually request your help and have their questions directed to you with anything taxes. Don't come to me for taxes. Come to him to taxes or anything financial. So I'm glad that I was able to get you on and we could have this conversation. I guess my last question before we get into the fun stuff is, what advice would you give to a young Black man?
I'm very, very passionate about that. So you should be on my newsletter. I don't know if you read my newsletter.
I do. That's why I came with the question. I want you to put it on here.
Perfect. So, hey, listen, if you check me out on LinkedIn and different media, pretty soon the picture is going to change because I have a picture with me with a Caesar cut. And now if you're able to see me, you'll see that I have locks. So this is just to talk about my hair. It's not just hair. It is like a timeline of my journey. I keep it grown. And yeah, so just to relate it back to your young Black man, is that a lot of times we feel like we have to shrink to fit into certain spaces, and we shouldn't have to do that. I will caution you to be humble, to always be willing to learn. The biggest room out there, whether, figuratively or any other way you want to put it, is the room of growth, because you could always keep growing. So be humble enough to learn, but not only that, be bold enough to teach, because your experiences is yours. A lot of times, so that specific email that came to mind where I asked her, hey, do you read my newsletter? And she said that's the reason she came with a question. That particular email newsletter, I had multiple people reply to it and sharing their stories with me. So as a young Black man, sometimes you may feel alone in your journey and what you're going through. I just want to let you know you're not alone. And sometimes just speaking about it might help somebody else. And not only that, it is therapy for you. I see you, Black men. That's another thing I want to say. Sometimes we feel like we're unseen, but I see you. And part of the reason I'm so bold and outspoken is it's kind of like I'm sending that signal that you see there's somebody like you out there, but I cannot do it alone. Every movement need, the people to be part of it. So I will say, definitely stop playing checkers and start playing chess, because you have experiences to be able to do that. And we don't have to fake it to make it. We need to face it to make it, or also faith it to make it.
I like that. I like that a lot. So we're going to switch it up to some fun time. We get to know the real Carl. So shake it out. And we're going to do my favorite, fill in the blank. It's a game that you fill in the blank with a statement that's totally random, but it's catered to you personally from the top of your head. So for an example, this is going to be a taste, the flamboche. I think I butchered it, but you get the picture. So if you see my computer desk, you will see blank on my desk.
You will see a digital album. So I love my family. All that I do is done, with them in mind for them. And I always knew there would not be enough room wherever I be inside of my office, or didn't want to lose sight of that. So there will not be enough room, no matter how big I get, to put enough pictures. So I always have, turned on a digital album that is basically just, showing different pictures of my family, my kids as they're growing, and myself. So that is one thing. Also, I do keep miniature cars on my desk. It's kind of like a car that I want to get in the future. So it's part of me manifesting. And there's always business card on my desk, because I do so many networking going out there. And I'm always bringing it back, having them on my desk, keeping a stack, people that I should be reaching to but never get to reach to. And that's why I do the newsletter. So I like to just get those cards. Like right when I'm exchanging card with someone, I tell them, hey, just so you know, I'm going to reach out. But before I even reach out, I have a newsletter about once or twice a week. I'll include you in there just so you can know and learn a little bit about who I am, but also a little bit more about what I do. So you're not just seeing, professional Carl, but you're seeing the personal Carl.
Right. That's what I admire about yours. I got to get my newsletter up, to be honest. The next one is blank is my strength, but blank is my weakness.
Does that have to be the same thing, or it's two different things?
It's two different things. So you're going to give me one of your strengths, one of your weakness.
All right. So freedom is my strength.
Okay.
I'm very bold. I like to feel very free. Yeah, sometimes people can describe me as intense, whether it is, playing. Like I play soccer, I play intensely, but also, when I'm doing business, I can be very laser focused. And this is just me being freely me, but I'm switching it up also. My weakness, honestly, I think it is that same freedom whenever I don't do the Mr. Miyagi wax on, wax off. I don't go to right now this is business, or right now this is fun. As you can see, I switch it up here and there, but sometimes I might be at the networking having more fun than actually doing business. So I guess you could say, honestly, it is being an artist in a professional environment. That's my weakness.
Okay, I see that. Blank is my superpower.
Relatability. That's my superpower. Communication. Like, I'm not one of those people, like, if you go on my LinkedIn, you're gonna see, hey, I've always started at the top. You'll see the jobs that I had, that you would expect a teenager to have. So being that I started from the bottom to grow to where I am, I'm able to relate to people at every stages or every walk of life. And to me, that is my superpower, because in my profession, you might have a second generation lawyer or a second generation CPA, and all they knew about is this thing. And they always sort of being like sheltered from like a hard life. But having had a hard life growing up, it makes me able to relate to just about anybody.
Okay. In my car, you will find.
In my car, you will find kid stuff. Yeah, my kids have no regard for my car. I'm bound to find, pen, paper, the homework, whatever it is that they just trash it in my car. So yeah, you're gonna find some kid stuff.
Leave it to the kids, right?
Yeah.
So hustle is blank.
Hustle is literally the word behind me right now. Hustle is life for me. And I don't just mean hustle in a sense of, a business, like hustle to wake up early in the morning, hustle as resilience where you want to start the day on a good note. And I'm staying up till like past midnight washing dishes because we were out with the family, just having a good time. Like hustle is my default mode.
Okay. Let's see. Carl Cyrius is blank.
Carl Cyrius is an artist.
And you're just like, and that's on that. He's not in his head, yes.
At heart, I am an artist. Yeah, and you can see it through my writing. If you just, check me out, whether it be on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, go to the caption. And you see my writing, and you'll notice why, to me, is my, that's what I probably should have said, as far as like, my biggest strength is my writing.
Yeah, your penmanship is definitely there. That would have been my weakness, to be honest. I hope that the future me blank.
I hope that the future means...
No, the future me blank.
Oh, the future me? I hope that the future me is freer.
Oh, how so?
So there's this quote I remember growing up where it talks about I'm going to be, something like an engineer or doctor so that my kids can be something like a musician or a poet. Part of me in this profession is a little bit selfish. I didn't want to be a starving artist, like at heart. Like I say, I am an artist, but I'm aware that art is not valued as much as it should be. And the numbers of people that make it as artists and a living is abysmal. And me having a golden brain, being good at art and also numbers, I noticed I wanted to have something where I can make a living, raise a family, leave a legacy. However, as I'm getting into that, I do anticipate in the future, I will be able to back my time, and I can take some lessons in piano, guitar, or maybe even drum.
Ooh.
So that will be like a freer me. I'll be able to write more poetry that is not just about taxes, but more so about relationship, because that's the theme that resonate with me a lot more. So I just hope that the future me is freer to do those things.
Okay. I like that. We have two more. So my blank shapes my blank because blank.
My mindset shape my reality because everything starts in the mind.
I like that. You don't even have to explain it. I got it. And the last one is the Oasis firm is blank.
The Oasis firm is the financial FUBU.
The financial FUBU?
Mm-hmm.
How so?
For us, by us. And I don't just mean in a sense of like culturally, but I mean it in a sense of like we say, you know, I'm an artist, I can relate with that. So it goes back to the relatability. No matter where you are, I can relate with you. You know, I had a friend recently, and he liked to throw me some random question. Matter of fact, he likes to throw anybody some random question. So I know that's just him being him. He was like, Carl, how old were you when you saw your first white person? And I'm like, dude, my dad is white, you know? So wow. I really believe in a world where we are just human, and we have more that is, we have more in common than we have that separate us and alienate us. So that's what I mean by that.
Okay. Well, that is the end of the fun time portion for today. However, let my listeners know what you got going on. This is where you plug in all your handles, everything of what you got going on, and anything you would like to say to my audience.
Yes, for sure. So the Oasis firm is actually going through the trademark process to be known as the home of the holy tax trifecta. So most people, when they hear trifecta, they think of three things. And for us, what that means, it is tax preparation, tax planning, and tax protection. I say protection instead of representation because I believe that prevention is always better than the remedy. Most tax preparers, they only prepare returns. Most financial advisors only give you advice that you need a tax preparer to implement it. And by the time you have tax representation, it's probably too late. It means you're already in trouble with the IRS. So we provide you the preparation, the planning, and the protection so you are proactively saving aggressively while still being able to sleep like a baby at night. And you can find the Oasis firm on many, many different social platforms. I mean, it's only so many of them out there. But also you could find Carl Cyrius on many platforms, and more specifically on Instagram. Look up for taxplug_EA. That's my handle, and that's where I focus on growing my connections, because I don't like to say followers. And at the Oasis firm, we don't close deals, we open relationship, and I'd love to open a relationship with you. Feel free, hop in my DM, shoot me a question. If I get that question enough, I might make a video out of it. But also, if it's just a random question, I might just answer it in a DM. I mean, it does go down in a DM sometimes. It's something where it needs to be a little bit longer, I might just say, you know what, let's carve out some time and I'll be able to help you out. I will really live a life of service. So whatever you need, even if it's like, man, I just would like to understand this better, I'll be open to hear that question just so I could make content out of it. So yeah, I'm part content creator, and that's me leveraging the artist in me. So yeah, definitely follow me anywhere. The Oasis Firm, go on our website, theoasisfirm.com. You'll see more handles that we have there. We are on YouTube, we are on Instagram, we are on Facebook, and we are also on LinkedIn.
Oh, that was perfect. Well, that's our time for today. Thank you for listening onto my podcast. Hopefully, I see you in the next podcast. See you soon.
See you soon. Toodles.